Hello there everyone, welcome to this week's Gran Turismo 7 Daily Race and Strategy Guide, and as predicted we are off to Circuit des Spa Francorchamps in the Group 3 cars, and it is a wet weather race. Whether you want to call it scripted or dynamic, it is pretty much looks like it's an identical copy of the race from about 8 months ago, where we did 20 laps, we had timing at ×4, fuel at ×2, we've got the mediums, the intermediates and the wets available. There is a mandatory pit stop here, BOP is on, damage is light, it's a rolling start, and because they've copied the settings from 8 months ago, we have real slipstream. For your settings allowed, we only have the brake balance. However, whilst it may be a repeat copy-paste race, as I said in the community post the other day, the tyre model has changed and the experience of driving in the wet weather has changed, so it will feel kind of different to the last time we did this race. So first thing, when you go into this race, is you want to be checking that weather radar to see if there is some wet weather in the vicinity, and as you can see in this race that we're about to enter, the wet weather is somewhere near the track. Now obviously we're going to start on the slick tyres, but it's always a good idea to take a wee look at that weather radar, and you can see, if you can see it within the 50 miles, you know it's probably going to hit the track at some point. If you can't see it, then it's going to be a dry race all the way through. Now fuel is going to be an issue in this one, so do put the fuel mixture onto 6 as the race gets underway. Well, not underway, but you know what I mean, as we do the little bit of formation lap, because you will maybe save 1% of fuel, which could be crucial towards the end of the race. Now we didn't get the best start there. We are using the full course and not the 24-hour version, so the rolling start is not brilliant if you are towards the back of the grid, as we are starting down in P13. And this is the 7 o'clock race, the very first race of the week on the EMEA server, and there's a lot of the familiar names in this one, as we normally see when we do these strategy guides. We've got Tidgety behind us. Before we mention Tidgety though, we should mention that was a little bit of a scary moment coming out of the top of Eau Rouge and Radion onto the Camel Straight here. Overtaking a couple of cars, but we've got Tidgety down the outside of us, and we're just going to let him kind of go there, not make it too difficult. Early stages of a 20 lap race, there is no point fighting too much at this stage when we are already, what, 8 seconds off the lead. So Tidgety's going to be faster than us anyway, well, almost certainly in that Porsche. We've got Max Power just in front of Tidgety there as well. And I should mention, we are in the Honda NSX. So jumping forward here to lap 3, we can see that that wet weather is indeed moving towards the track. We're kind of keeping with the cars in front as well, so it's all well and good. We're moved up a couple of positions. Going to overtake the Supra here down the outside of, well, just before Blanchimont, as they serve a penalty. And we're going to have a couple of Porsches up in front of us who are going to get into a little bit of a tango, and that's going to result in us moving up into P9. We've got Norman there going a little bit deep. Tidgety goes round the outside. We decide we'll go round the outside as well. A little bit tight there, but it's all well and good. And that moves us up into P9. But taking a wee check of the fuel there as well, you're going to sort of know that mention that fuel is a concern in this one, particularly if the race stays completely dry. But we're going to jump forward here to lap 5. The weather has now hit the track, and this is where we kind of got our first sign. If we look down into the wetness meter down the bottom left hand corner, you can see that the car is starting to register some dampness, some moisture on the track. So we went round for one further lap there, and as we came round to the pits here at the end of lap 6, we decided, now that the wet weather had properly hit the track and I felt the car was getting a little bit squirmy, we decided we're going to come into the pits here, and interestingly enough, everybody else carries on. So we're the first one to show our hand. Now this wasn't really a risk, it was more of a kind of, maybe we get lucky here. If we don't get lucky, then we've just pitted one lap early. We're not going to lose that much time, but maybe we get it completely spot on. Going to take some fuel on there as well to get us to the end of the race. We're going to stick the intermediate tyres on, and your pit loss, if you only change the tyres, don't take any fuel on, is going to be about 24 seconds, and add 1 second for every 7 litres of fuel that you add into the car. Now the car in front of us is a bit sort of concerned what's going on here, but it looks like they have put a set of medium tyres on, and given the fact they've got no grip there, I was kind of thinking, okay, looks like we have maybe called this one right, but let's keep an eye on that delta as we progress through the lap. So not really gaining time on the leaders, but now the yellow flags are starting to come out. Now that delta is coming down pretty rapidly from 40 seconds all the way down to 28 seconds. Everybody else is in the pits. It looks like we've made a very nice call here, doesn't it? Let's see just how good a call pitting that lap early is as we exit La Source on lap 8 here, and we have moved all the way up into P1. So getting that pit stop absolutely spot on there. Nice to get it right for a change, I guess. But coming up through Eau Rouge here, Radion on the intermediate tires for the first time at full speed. Always a little bit of a scary experience, and really at this point of the race it's all about just trying to feel for that grip. So initially in these wet conditions, this NSX actually felt quite good. When it was kind of proper intermediate conditions, I was quite comfortable with the car, but as the track got a little bit wetter here, as you can see, we're kind of getting fairly close to full wet conditions. The NSX just didn't have the grip, and we got caught by Shadow in the Alfa Romeo and Max Power in the Porsche. We just did not have the grip to fight with them. I was all over the place. They were much faster now. It looks like they were just much faster than everybody else because the gap to the cars behind us actually probably increased a little bit. But yeah, these two guys, a little bit of a league of their own at this point in the race. But as the track started to dry out again, the worst of the rain has passed. You can see on the weather radar there, that band of rain has disappeared. We were able to kind of, well, keep the two guys in front within touching distance as we move forward here to lap 13. You can see that dry line now starting to appear, and the result of that drying line on the intermediate tyres is that, well, they don't like it very much. So in these kind of conditions, it's probably a good idea to be moving off the line on the straights and trying to cool those tyres down, because once that kind of dry line appears, and if you just drive on the dry line, the tyre wear on the intermediates is pretty extreme. This is just 2 laps later from what we were looking at there. Now the dilemma here is that I don't think these intermediates are going to make it to the end of the race if we stay out on them. But the track isn't like that dry either, so coming into the pits here I was kind of swivering. Do I put on another set of intermediates, or do we go for the medium tyres, the slick tyres? Now Max Power had pitted the lap before this, and there was no way Max was pitting for another set of intermediates, so I was pretty sure he would be on the slicks. So the slicks is what we went for. We didn't need to take any more fuel on. You do obviously have to be very careful at this point as you exit the pits. Until you get onto that racing line, the track is wet, so probably a good idea if you're making the pit stop from intermediates to slick tyres to make sure you put the TC on before you get into the pits, so you've got that safety net as you leave. Obviously we were being super cautious coming out the pits here. Max took 2 seconds out of me going up through Eau Rouge and Radion, and TCR Kemp here went up through Eau Rouge much quicker than me as well. And this is what's kind of interesting about these conditions. It's like a confidence kind of thing. Who's got the confidence to push in these wet well, you know, there's a dry line there, and if you push too hard, what can happen is what's happened to the leader of the race there. Shadow in the Alfa Romeo has gone off the track, having probably just caught a wheel on the wet stuff, and around the car goes. So there really is, you know, it's a very, very thin racing line here, but the grip is there if you're on the medium tyres. You just got to, you know, how brave are you going to be? We were under pressure there from TCR Kemp in the GTR, but we then managed to open the gap up to them. Max was gone, he was in a league of his own in this one, and we've got Tidgney coming up behind us here on the last lap, who caught us for about 4 or 5 seconds over the last few laps. I think that Porsche is very, very strong in every sort of condition, and I think that's probably going to be the car that most people are going to kind of deviate towards as the week goes on. It's good in the dry, it's good in the drying conditions. It seems to be handle the sort of wetter conditions better than the NSX as well. So yeah, I do think that Porsche is going to be the car of choice. But we're going to hold on here and take home a P2, which is a pretty decent result from P11, and I must say probably one of the best races I've been part of, and probably one of the best races I've ever driven as well, because we never really had that great a pace here. All we did in this one was make the right calls at the right time, keep the car pointed in the right direction, and we bring home a P2. And that's what the sort of race that I love. I love it when there's more than just being fast that's important to a race, and that's why You know, I like these longer races, it's why I like the dynamic weather, it's why I like the tyre wear, it's why I like the fuel management, because, you know, when it just comes down to pace, then you might as well just be a qualifying race. When it comes down to other factors of racing, that's what makes a race as far as I'm concerned. But let's move on to the strategy options in this one. If it happens to be a completely dry race, then going by what I could see from the tyre wear, and I did a little bit of testing yesterday as well, the optimal is going to be pretty much splitting it down the middle. That shouldn't really come as any surprise. Both stints you're going to be suffering some pretty decent tyre wear towards the end, so the lap times are going to drop off. So your kind of optimal strategy is going to be like 9 laps in the first stint, 11 laps in the second stint. Obviously the tyres will be a little bit cooler coming out the pits, so fuel will be a little bit lower as well, so you should be able to do a slightly longer stint. Obviously fuel is a factor in this one, so any fuel that you manage to save is going to minimise that pit loss as well. In terms of undercut, you can't really, well, you probably can go quite extreme. You could probably pit earlier than lap 6 like I've suggested there, but I think if you want to still have some kind of tyres towards the end of the race, lap 6 is maybe the earliest you want to go for the undercut. With the new, well, the tyre wear model as it is now compared to when we last did this race, there will actually be some undercut potential there. If you pit on lap 6, you will actually have more pace than the other cars on their older mediums. The problem with the old tyre wear model is that tyres that were 10 laps old weren't really any quicker, or any slower, sorry, than tyres that were 1 lap old, and that's why the undercut potential was lost. With the tyre wear model as it is now, we do actually have some undercut potential, but this one really is all about those wet weather races. What's the weather going to do? Make sure you check that weather radar. It's very hard for me to tell you how to strategise a wet race. It's about making the right call at the right time to make sure you're on the right tyres for the right track conditions, and you'll just learn more and more about how to make that call the more races that you do. Keep the car pointing in the right direction. Take care as you exit the pits on slick tyres on a drying track as well, because that will catch a lot of people out. And don't push too hard, because, you know, speed is not everything in this one. As to how dynamic these races will be, just how much variety of weather patterns there is out there, impossible for me to say at the moment. I've only done the one race. I think it'll be similar to the last time we did it, so whilst not every race will play out identically, I think a lot of the wet races will have a kind of similar feel to them, which is unfortunate, but I think it's maybe just the way it is. Hopefully in the future PD will go completely random on the weather, and we'll see what that brings. But hopefully the video has been useful in some way, shape or form. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye now.